The year was 2376, and Earth had long been a member of the Galactic Union, a peaceful group of planets that coexisted under the rule of the Galactic Empire. For centuries, Earth's people had lived under the protection of the Empire, never questioning its authority. The Empire's vast fleet patrolled the galaxy, maintaining order and ensuring that no planet could rise against its might. But one day, something unimaginable happened, a moment that would change the course of history. It all started when the Council of Earth made an announcement that stunned the entire galaxy. The broadcast echoed across every news channel, every communication system in the universe, declaring in a calm yet unwavering tone, Earth's government has decided that no ships from the Galactic Empire are allowed to enter Earth's atmosphere, effective immediately. The transmission was brief, but the message it carried sent shockwaves through the entire Galactic Union. No one had expected Earth to do something so bold. The Empire had never been questioned in this way. No one could imagine a planet standing up against such a powerful force. The news spread like wildfire. On Earth, the reaction was mixed. Some celebrated, believing that the time had finally come for Earth to stand on its own, free from the Empire's grasp. They had been waiting for years for this moment, hoping that Earth's government would finally take a stand against the constant interference of the Empire. To them, this was a victory, a declaration of independence. On the other hand, there were those who feared the consequences. The Empire was a force like no other. They had witnessed its power firsthand in the past, and they knew what could happen when it was angered. The thought of defying such a powerful entity terrified them. What would the Empire do in response? Would they invade? Would they crush Earth under their heel? Meanwhile, in the far reaches of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire's leadership received the shocking news. The Imperial Senate was in turmoil as debates raged over how to handle this unprecedented act of defiance. The Emperor, known for his iron-fisted rule and unyielding power, had always maintained that no planet, no matter how small or distant, would dare to challenge the Empire's dominance. But now, Earth, once considered a loyal member of the Union, had crossed a line. They had declared their independence, and that could not go unanswered. The Emperor, sitting in his vast throne room aboard the Imperial flagship Dread Imperium, stared at the transmission in silence. His advisors shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what their ruler would say or do next. The Emperor's eyes were cold, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing, but the tension in the room was palpable. Finally, in a voice as cold as ice, he spoke, "Prepare the fleet. Earth must understand the consequences of this mistake." It was then that the Empire's massive warships began to mobilize. The Dread Imperium, a ship the size of a small moon, led the fleet, followed by dozens of other formidable ships, each brimming with advanced weaponry and elite soldiers. They were headed straight for Earth. The message was clear. The Empire would not tolerate rebellion. Earth would be made an example of. Back on Earth, the government was in full emergency mode. The president, a woman known for her calm and strategic mind, stood before the assembled military leaders and advisors. The atmosphere in the room was thick with fear, but the president remained composed. "We knew this day would come," she said, her voice steady. "Now we must prepare. Earth has made its declaration. We will not back down." Her words were firm, but even she could feel the weight of the situation. The Empire was coming, and it was coming with everything it had. The military quickly began preparations for defense. Earth's forces, while technologically advanced, were nowhere near as powerful as the Empire's fleet. The Empire's warships were equipped with weapons capable of annihilating entire cities in a single blast. Earth's defenses were nothing compared to that. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, Earth's leaders refused to surrender. They had made their declaration, and they would fight for it. As the Imperial fleet approached Earth's orbit, the tension on the planet became unbearable. People watched the skies, waiting for the first sign of the Empire's arrival. The news networks broadcasted live coverage of the situation, showing the fleet growing larger with each passing hour. The people of Earth, for the first time in centuries, felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. The fate of their world hung in the balance. In the Empire's fleet, the mood was one of quiet confidence. The Imperial commanders knew that their forces would crush Earth's defenses with ease. They had done it before with countless planets that had dared to resist their rule. Earth, they believed, would be no different. But there was one thing the Empire did not account for: the ingenuity and spirit of the human race. As the first Imperial warships entered Earth's atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The human military, which had long been preparing for such a moment, sprang into action. Satellites, hidden deep within Earth's defense network, fired electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disabled the Empire's communications. The fleet, momentarily disoriented, had lost contact with their command center. The Empire's ships, usually so precise in their movements, now had to rely on their own systems to navigate. The Empire's response was swift, but Earth's defenders had already anticipated their moves. Using hidden weaponry and defensive strategies developed in secret, Earth's forces began to disrupt the Imperial fleet. The Empire's superior firepower was no match for the relentless unpredictability of Earth's defense tactics. Every move the Empire made was countered, and the tide of the battle began to shift in ways the Empire had never expected. The President, watching from a command center, breathed a sigh of relief. The first phase of their plan had worked. But this was only the beginning. The battle for Earth was far from over, and the Empire would not give up so easily. Yet, in that moment, humanity's resilience was clear. Earth had taken the first step towards securing its future, and it had done so not through brute force, but through ingenuity, unity, and an unyielding will to survive. The fate of the planet was now in their hands. The declaration had been made, and there was no turning back. Earth was no longer just a member of the Galactic Union. It was a force to be reckoned with. The world watched in suspense, wondering what would happen next as the fate of the planet hung in the balance. Would Earth survive this invasion, or would the Empire crush it under its heel? Only time would tell. As the shocking declaration from Earth's government spread across the galaxy, it did not take long for the Galactic Empire to react. For centuries, the Empire had maintained an unyielding grip on the galaxy, its power unquestioned by all but the most rebellious worlds. Earth had long been considered a peaceful member of the Galactic Union, but now, with a single transmission, Earth's leaders had shaken the very foundation of imperial authority. The Empire, known for its overwhelming force and complete control, would not tolerate such insubordination. The Emperor himself, a figure whose presence alone struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's inhabitants, sat in his command center, silent and brooding. His eyes narrowed as he watched the transmission again. Earth had dared to defy him. The audacity of it stung, but it also ignited something darker within him, a desire to make an example of the planet, to remind every system in the galaxy of the Empire's absolute power. His advisors stood in silence around him, waiting for his command. The Emperor's hands rested on the arms of his throne, fingers tapping slowly in a rhythmic pattern that seemed to echo throughout the room. The tension was thick. The air felt heavy. Finally, the Emperor's cold voice broke the silence. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. His tone was calm, but filled with a terrifying certainty. "Earth's defiance will be punished. We will make them regret this decision." With those words, the machinery of the Empire began to grind into motion. The fleet that would strike Earth was not one of just a few warships. No, it was a full-scale operation. The dread Imperium, the largest and most powerful warship in the Empire's arsenal, would lead the charge. Its vast, dark shape loomed over the rest of the Imperial fleet, a shadow of death that could annihilate entire cities with a single strike. Behind it, dozens of warships, each more powerful than the last, followed in perfect formation. The fleet was unstoppable, its firepower unparalleled. It was a symbol of the Empire's might, a reminder of what happened to those who dared oppose it. As the fleet made its way toward Earth, the Empire's military leaders and strategists worked tirelessly to ensure a swift and decisive victory. They knew Earth was not prepared for such. On Earth, the mood was tense, but the government stood firm. Earth's leadership had made its declaration, and now it was up to them to protect their planet. The President of Earth, a woman known for her calm but unwavering determination, sat in a command center as the first reports of the Empire's fleet reached her. Her face was stern, but there was no panic. She had known this moment would come. Humanity had made its stand, and now they would face the consequences. The military had been preparing for this day for years. Earth's forces were far smaller and less advanced than the Empire's, but they were not without their advantages. For decades, Earth's scientists had been developing new technologies in secret, technologies that could disrupt and disable the Empire's ships. The first test of these technologies had been successful. But now, Earth's defenses were about to be put to the ultimate test. The President addressed the military leaders gathered around her. "We may not have the firepower to defeat the Empire in a head-to-head battle," she said, her voice calm yet filled with a quiet strength. "But we have something the Empire doesn't: ingenuity. We will use every tool at our disposal, every strategy we have, to protect our world. We are not going to just give up." Around her, the room filled with a renewed sense of determination. The world had been thrust into a battle for its survival, and humanity would not go down without a fight. Earth's military began to activate its defenses, launching satellites into space and preparing hidden weapons systems that had been built for this very moment. The fight would not be easy, but they would make the Empire pay for underestimating them. As the Imperial fleet approached Earth, the atmosphere on the planet was electric with tension. Across the globe, people watched the skies, their eyes trained on the stars, waiting for the inevitable. News stations broadcasted live feeds of the approaching fleet, showing the massive warships slowly entering the solar system. It was a sight that would be etched into the memory of every human alive. The reality of the situation was clear. Earth was facing an enemy unlike any it had ever encountered. The Empire's ships were nearly invincible, their weapons capable of reducing entire cities to ash in mere seconds. But Earth's people, though outmatched, were determined to stand their ground. At the front of the fleet, the dread Imperium fired its engines, sending shockwaves through space. The ship was massive, dwarfing even the largest of Earth's spacecraft. Its hull was a dark, imposing structure, a symbol of the Empire's power. As it entered the solar system, its sensors locked onto Earth's defenses, scanning for any sign of resistance. It was only a matter of time before the Empire launched its full-scale attack. But Earth was ready. In the command center, the President and her advisors watched as Earth's defensive systems came online. The first wave of electromagnetic pulses were deployed, aimed directly at the incoming fleet. The pulses were designed to disrupt the Imperial ship's communication systems, rendering them blind to the outside world. The Empire's advanced technology, for the first time, was vulnerable. The dread Imperium and its fleet were thrown into disarray, their communication channels cut off, and their systems scrambling to regain control. For a moment, the Empire's ships seemed frozen in space, unable to respond. It was a small victory for Earth, but it was a victory nonetheless. The Empire's fleet was not invincible. The fight had only just begun, and the Empire was about to learn that humanity was not the weak, helpless species they had once thought. But even as the first signs of resistance showed, the Empire did not back down. The dread Imperium's weapons were still fully functional, and the fleet's commanders quickly regained control. The Imperial ships began to reposition themselves, preparing for a more aggressive assault. They had been delayed, but they had not been defeated. And soon, Earth would feel the full weight of their fury. The tension on Earth grew thicker with each passing moment. The countdown to the inevitable battle was ticking away. The people of Earth, though anxious and scared, were united by a single, unbreakable thought: they would fight. And perhaps, just perhaps, They would show the Empire that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Empire had responded, and Earth was about to discover what it truly meant to stand up against the most powerful force in the galaxy. Would Earth's defense hold? Or would the Empire's wrath be too much to bear? The battle was only beginning, and the outcome was still uncertain. But one thing was clear. This was a fight for humanity's survival, and they were ready to face whatever the Empire threw at them. The conflict between Earth and the Empire had escalated far beyond what anyone had anticipated. What had started as a confrontation of military might was quickly transforming into a war of minds. As Earth's leaders scrambled to keep up with the relentless might of the Empire's overwhelming fleet, they soon realized that their only hope of survival lay not in brute force, but in their ability to outthink their enemy. The President of Earth, a sharp and determined woman, sat in the heart of the command center, her mind racing. The Empire had vastly superior technology and firepower, but Earth had something the Empire did not: creativity. They had an edge that could turn the tide of this war, not in the physical battlefield, but in the battle of intellect. It had been hours since the dread Imperium, the Empire's flagship, had taken up position just outside Earth's atmosphere. Its weapons were primed. Its sensors were locked on Earth's most critical targets. It seemed like only a matter of time before the devastating bombardment would begin. But the President, despite the overwhelming pressure, refused to give in. "We will not fight them in the way they expect," she said, her voice steady. "We need to turn this into a battle of wits. Our survival depends on it." With that, she and her advisors began to craft a strategy that relied on deception, psychological tactics, and a deep understanding of the Empire's behavior. The Empire's arrogance was its greatest weakness. The President knew that if they could exploit the Empire's overconfidence, they might just be able to force the Imperial fleet into a mistake they could not recover from. Meanwhile, the fleet's commanders aboard the dread Imperium were already preparing for the inevitable. The Emperor, safe on his command station many light years away, trusted his officers to handle the tactical aspects of the invasion. He had given them full authority, confident that no force, no matter how daring, could overcome the Empire's might. After all, no one had ever dared to challenge them on this scale before. The idea of humans outsmarting the Empire was laughable. The fleet's commanders, however, were careful, too careful, perhaps. They had already underestimated Earth, once by taking its defenses too lightly. But now, with their superior ships in orbit, they were ready to crush any resistance with the press of a button. Or so they thought. On Earth, the war of wits began in earnest. The first phase of Earth's plan was simple but effective. They started sending out false communications. At first, they sent messages that appeared to be from the President herself, broadcasting orders to Earth's military to stand down and surrender. These messages were carefully crafted to sound as though they came from a high-ranking government official, but with subtle errors, imperfections that only a trained Imperial officer would notice. It was a gamble, but Earth's leaders were hoping the Empire's arrogance would cause them to dismiss these discrepancies as insignificant. If the Empire believed that the President was wavering, perhaps they would let down their guard, even for a moment. The response came quickly, and with it, the first glimpse of the Empire's true nature. The dread Imperium's command center began to buzz with activity as the intercepted communications were analyzed. The Emperor's officers were far too eager to believe that Earth was surrendering. They were so blinded by their confidence in their own superiority that they failed to question the authenticity of the messages. They assumed that the President's apparent weakness meant victory was near. In their haste to bring Earth to its knees, they missed the critical detail. The messages were all fake. They had been designed to bait the Empire into a false sense of security. As soon as the Empire's fleet relaxed its vigilance, Earth moved to the next phase of its plan. Hidden deep within the solar system were Earth's most dangerous assets, secret weapons that had been developed in the shadows of the war. For years, Earth had been working on advanced technology that could disrupt Imperial ships, and now the time had come to test them. A fleet of small, seemingly inconspicuous ships, disguised as standard satellites, fired a volley of electromagnetic pulses at the Imperial fleet. The pulse hit just as the Empire was preparing to launch its strike on Earth's cities. It wasn't a physical attack. There were no explosions, no laser fire. Instead, the pulse knocked out the Empire's communications systems, rendering their fleet blind. For the first time in the conflict, the Empire's superiority was challenged. The dread Imperium was unable to communicate with the rest of the fleet, and for a brief moment, chaos reigned among the Empire's forces. Back on Earth, the President watched the scene unfold on the screens in front of her. "They've fallen right into our trap," she muttered to herself, a slight smile crossing her face. But there was no time for celebration. This was only a small victory, and the Empire was not one to make the same mistake twice. They would fight back, and Earth had to be ready. The battle for the Empire's fleet was now a war of intelligence. Earth's military had to stay one step ahead, using the disruption caused by the pulse to create even more confusion among the Imperial forces. In a risky move, Earth began sending out false signals to the fleet, signals that suggested Earth was preparing to launch a devastating counterattack. The Empire, still blind to the true situation, scrambled to adjust its strategy, drawing more ships into a defensive position around the dread Imperium. The trap was closing in. For hours, Earth's military kept the Empire guessing, constantly shifting their positions and sending out new false signals. The dread Imperium's commanders could do nothing but respond, their every move predicted and countered. It was a delicate game, one that pushed both sides to their limits. But Earth, with its limited resources and small fleet, had proven one thing. They could think faster, act smarter, and manipulate the enemy in ways the Empire could not. As the days passed, the Empire began to show signs of frustration. The dread Imperium's captain, once confident in his victory, found himself second-guessing every decision. The Empire's fleet was growing more disorganized by the hour, and the pressure was mounting. The Emperor himself, watching from his distant command post, was beginning to realize the true threat that Earth posed. It was not their weapons that made them dangerous, nor their sheer numbers, but their ability to outthink their adversary. The war was no longer about strength. It was about who could outsmart whom. And as Earth's tactics continued to outmaneuver the Empire, one thing became clear. This war of wits was far from over, but Earth had proven they were capable of standing toe-to-toe with the might of the Empire, not through firepower, but through sheer intellect. And in that, Earth had found its greatest strength. The Earth was on the edge of destruction. After months of tension and manipulation, the Empire's massive fleet had finally arrived at Earth's doorstep. No longer was it a war of minds and strategies. Now, it was a battle for survival. The Empire's ships, vast and menacing, loomed in the sky, blocking out the sun with their sheer size. The weight of the situation pressed down on the entire planet, as cities prepared for a fight they didn't know how to win. The President of Earth, sitting in the heart of the command center, was no longer speaking of tactics or deception. It was time for action. The battle for Earth had begun. The Empire had expected Earth to surrender easily. They had seen the small, primitive fleet Earth possessed and thought it would crumble before their superior technology. But they were wrong. The humans had already proven that they could outthink their opponents, but now they had to prove they could survive against overwhelming force. Earth's military had been working tirelessly to prepare for this moment. They had developed new weapons and defensive systems, all designed to make the Empire think twice about destroying them. Earth's fleet, though small, was determined and ready to fight with everything they had. The first wave of the Empire's attack came quickly. A barrage of energy blasts from the Empire's warships rained down on Earth's defenses, smashing into the surface with terrifying power. Buildings crumbled, and the skies were filled with smoke and fire. It seemed like the end had come. The Empire had the upper hand, and there was nothing Earth could do but hold on and pray. But the President's voice rang out through the chaos, steady and calm, as she gave the order. Initiate Phase 1. Phase 1 had been in the works for months. The plan was simple, but it required precision and timing. Earth's military had secretly developed a series of weapons capable of disrupting the Empire's advanced technology. These weapons were hidden deep within Earth's underground bunkers, waiting for the right moment to be used. As the Empire's ships continued their bombardment, Earth's forces launched a counterattack. The first wave of Earth's ships, heavily modified with new weaponry, emerged from their hidden bases, and the battle for Earth truly began. The Empire's fleet had not expected this. Earth's ships, though smaller and weaker, had a ferocity about them that the Empire had not anticipated. The first few moments of the battle were chaotic. Earth's ships darted through the skies, using their agility to dodge the Empire's heavy fire. They fired back with energy beams that slammed into the Empire's ships, causing sparks to fly and shields to flicker. It was a stunning sight, but the Empire's response was swift. The larger warships turned their guns on Earth's fleet, unleashing devastating blasts that tore through the small ships like they were made of paper. The battle raged on for hours, with Earth's fleet desperately trying to hold its ground. The Empire, for all its firepower, was being pushed to the limit. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were starting to realize it. But the humans were not the only ones who had prepared for this day. Deep in the heart of Earth's defense network, Phase 2 of the plan was already set in motion. In space, the Empire's fleet was starting to feel the pressure. Their advanced sensors began to glitch, and their communication systems started to fail. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but Earth's forces had struck again. Using the electromagnetic pulse technology they had developed earlier, Earth's military had launched a series of targeted pulses at the Empire's ships. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it was enough to cripple their systems. The Empire's fleet was now blind and deaf, unable to coordinate their attacks effectively. The humans were fighting back, and they were making it hurt. Back on the ground, Earth's leaders were not idle. The President, her mind focused, watched the battle unfold on a massive holographic display. "We need more time," she said, her voice low but filled with determination. "We can't afford to lose the capital." She turned to her top military advisor, a seasoned veteran who had seen many battles in his time. "Phase 3, she ordered. Phase 3 was a desperate move. Earth had developed a prototype weapon, something that could potentially turn the tide of the battle in their favor. It was a giant cannon, hidden beneath the surface of the Earth's crust, capable of firing a devastating pulse that could disable even the most powerful Imperial ships. But it was still experimental. If it worked, it could be the key to winning the war. If it failed, Earth's last hope would be gone. The weapon, a massive structure designed to fire concentrated energy at a target, was slowly coming online. It required precise calibration and alignment, and it had to fire in perfect synchronization with the rest of Earth's forces. The countdown was underway, and the pressure was mounting. Earth's fleet, still holding on despite the overwhelming power of the Empire, continued to harass the Imperial ships, buying time for the weapon to charge. Outside, the skies were filled with the sound of battle. The Empire's ships rained fire down upon Earth's cities, and the Earth shook as explosions rocked the planet. Yet despite the odds, Earth's forces did not falter. The small fleet fought with everything they had, refusing to give in. They had nothing left to lose. The weapon was almost ready. The Empire's fleet, still struggling to regain control of their systems, had not yet realized what was coming. They were too focused on their offensive to notice the subtle changes in the battle. As the weapon fired, a massive surge of energy shot into space, crashing into the heart of the Empire's fleet. The blast was so powerful that it sent shockwaves through the Empire's warships, disabling them in an instant. The first wave of Imperial ships went dark, their systems fried by the pulse. The Empire's forces, already weakened by the earlier disruptions, were now in chaos. They tried to regroup, but Earth's forces, sensing victory, pressed the advantage. The battle for Earth had not been won with firepower alone, but with strategy, cunning, and determination. Earth had survived the first wave of the Empire's assault and had inflicted a crushing blow. As the smoke began to clear and the dust settled, it was clear that the tide had turned. The Empire had been forced to retreat, their forces in disarray. Earth, against all odds, had held its ground. The President of Earth stood before her people, her heart filled with pride and relief. "We have won," she said, her voice strong. But the war is far from over. The battle for Earth was only the beginning. The Empire would be back. But for now, Earth had proven that it was not to be underestimated. They had fought back with everything they had, and they had won. But in the back of her mind, the President knew that the true war had just begun. The smoke had barely cleared from the sky when the people of Earth realized the cost of what they had done. Victory was theirs, at least for now. But the silence that followed the great battle felt heavier than the explosions that had shaken their cities. The Empire had retreated, crippled and humiliated, but Earth was left bleeding, both in body and soul. Across the planet, buildings lay in ruin, cities stood half destroyed, and the ground was littered with debris from both human and alien ships. Families searched through rubble, calling out names that would never be answered. The President stood alone in the command center, eyes fixed on the giant screen showing a broken sky above a damaged world, knowing that what they had gained came at a terrible cost. Freedom was not cheap, this much was now clear. The price had been paid in blood, sacrifice, and the innocence of a world that would never be the same. In the days following the battle, a quiet desperation settled over Earth. People tried to return to their normal lives, but everything felt different. There were scars now, visible and invisible, and questions no one could answer. How long until the Empire came back? What would they do when they returned with a stronger fleet, more weapons, and revenge burning in their hearts? Earth had fought back with all it had, and somehow, against all odds, it had survived. But survival was not the same as peace. The leaders gathered in secret meetings, discussing how to rebuild, how to prepare for the next attack, and how to protect a planet that had just become a target for the most powerful force in the galaxy. The people called the battle a miracle, but miracles, the President knew, came with consequences. Earth's resistance had drawn attention, not just from the Empire, but from countless other galactic powers who had watched the fight from afar. Some were impressed by the humans' courage, while others saw them as a dangerous threat. Offers for alliances began to arrive, most filled with hidden motives, while others brought warnings. One message, intercepted from deep space, chilled everyone who read it. Earth has tasted defiance. Now it must taste punishment. The President kept that message secret from the public, not wanting to spread panic. But inside, she feared what was coming. Rebuilding efforts began immediately, with nations uniting like never before. Borders vanished as people worked together, sharing resources, knowledge, and skills. Scientists who once competed now collaborated, developing new technology based on what they had learned from the Empire's broken machines. Engineers worked day and night to reinforce Earth's defenses, building shields around cities and launching satellites into orbit, turning Earth into a fortress. But all this came at a cost. Resources were stretched thin, economies struggled, and many citizens questioned if freedom was worth such suffering. Protests began to rise. People demanded answers. Why had they provoked the Empire? Why not surrender and survive instead of risking total destruction? The President stood before the people in a global broadcast, her voice calm but unshaken. "We did not start this war," she said, "but we finished what they started. Freedom is not given, it is earned. And we have earned it together. But freedom must be defended, even when the cost is high. Yes, we are hurting. Yes, we are afraid. But we are also strong. And no matter what comes next, we will face it as one." Her words spread across the globe, and for a moment, they gave people hope. But deep inside, even she knew the hardest part had just begun. As Earth tried to heal, strange events began to occur. Alien ships, smaller and faster than the Empire's, began to appear near the edge of the solar system. Some watched from a distance. Others sent cryptic messages, warnings of a second wave, or offers of help in exchange for control over Earth's orbit. One ship, from a species known as the Cavaran, landed quietly in the middle of a desert and requested a meeting. Their leader, a gray-skinned creature with glowing eyes, offered a deal: full protection from the Empire in exchange for a permanent military base on Earth. The president refused. She knew what it would mean. Earth would no longer be free. It would be a pawn in someone else's game. But her refusal came with a warning. If you choose isolation, you will face the storm alone. The storm came sooner than expected. Imperial probes returned, slipping past Earth's defenses to scan the planet's progress. The Empire was watching, waiting, learning. Earth's spies intercepted another message. This time, a date. 1 Earth year. That was how long they had before the Empire returned in full force. It was not enough time. Earth could not outbuild the Empire. It could not outgun them. The only way to survive would be to outthink them. Again. So Earth turned once more to what had saved them before: human ingenuity. Scientists began experimenting with alien tech, creating hybrid weapons and cloaking devices. Soldiers trained harder, preparing not just for war, but for survival in occupied zones. Civilians were educated in emergency protocols, evacuation drills, and resistance tactics. But none of it could erase the fear that no matter what they did, it wouldn't be enough. People started disappearing. Scientists, engineers, military leaders. Rumors spread of betrayal, of spies on Earth working for the Empire, sabotaging plans from within. Trust began to erode. Suspicion filled the air. Then, just when Earth's hope began to flicker, something unexpected happened. A message from within the Empire itself. A defector, an Imperial commander who had witnessed the battle for Earth and could no longer support the Empire's cruelty. He offered valuable information: locations of Imperial supply routes, weaknesses in their command structure, and, most importantly, a way to disrupt the Empire's faster-than-light travel. If Earth could use it, they could delay the next invasion by years. But there was a cost. The defector wanted asylum, not just for himself, but for his family. He feared the Empire's punishment and would only help if Earth guaranteed their safety. The president faced an impossible choice. Giving shelter to the enemy could cause global outrage. But refusing him meant losing the only chance to protect Earth. After hours of discussion, she agreed, secretly moving the defector to a secure location. The information he provided changed everything. Earth now had a plan, a way to slow the Empire, to buy time, to prepare. But even with this new hope, the way to freedom remained. The people of Earth had won their right to exist, but they had inherited a future of constant vigilance, of sacrifices, and hard choices. The skies above were clear for now, but everyone knew it wouldn't last. The price of freedom was not a single battle. It was a lifetime of struggle. And Earth, though tired and wounded, was ready to pay it again. And again, if it meant never living under another's rule. Because now they understood the truth. Freedom is never free, but it is always worth fighting for.